Hello, everyone. So we'll go ahead and we'll start Unit 10 East Asia. And of course, I will go over the parts there where the questions are. So that way, of course, you can answer them. And then, of course, also, too, you'll be able to answer all the questions in the study guide, okay? So East Asia, clearly can see that China is the dominant country, okay? And then Japan's dominant, too, because of its economic power. And then you have Taiwan, South Korea, North Korea, and Mongolia. Okay, I think this map clearly shows it here. Okay, but again, is that China obviously is the dominant one, but again, Japan is also dominant in terms of its economics. If you notice with China, it has one of the most diverse climates in the world. There is no denying that, okay? And clearly you can see there is a difference there between all the different regions of China. Of course, Japan being an island country, not as much diversity of climate, but again, China does dominate. It is comparable to the United States in terms of climate diversity. So I'm going to answer all these questions here by looking at the map. For Southeast China, okay, right here, that is a humid subtropical climate, okay? So they have a humid subtropical climate, sort of similar to the Southeast, excuse me, and the border states of the United States. Southwest China, it's a highland climate because of the Himalayan mountains. Then up here in northwest China, also north central China, again, that is where you have a desert climate. In northeast China, it's humid continental cold. Okay, so you do have a humid continental cold climate. And then again, for Japan, humid subtropical for like Tokyo and Osaka. And then for northern Japan is a humid continental cold climate. Okay, so those are the climates there. Now also do Mongolia, the Koreas, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Hong Kong also has a humid subtropical climate. Taiwan actually has a humid subtropical climate as well. Okay, you're starting to see a pattern here. And then for South Korea, they have a humid subtropical climate, but North Korea has a humid continental cold climate. Okay, that's why during the Korean War it was very cold there. And then Mongolia, they have a desert climate, okay? So it is a arid climate. It is a desert, okay? Just like north central China is a desert because of the Gobi Desert. And again, you can clearly see that it is a diverse climate when compared to the United States, okay? So it is a diverse climate. Now, if you look at China as a whole, there are a lot of physical geographic differences here with the Gobi Desert, the rivers, and of course the plains and the waterways. And again, this will help you answer the population questions. But I do want to go over some of these earthquake terms right here, okay? So I'll start from the bottom and I'll work my way up, okay? Because it goes from easiest at the bottom to hardest towards the top. A tsunami is simply created from an earthquake underwater, okay? So it's a tsunami created by an earthquake underwater, okay? And seismic waves, they actually, come from the epicenter of an earthquake. So when you have an earthquake in an area, it will actually be the epicenter. It will actually come about from the point of the epicenter, okay? So, and I'll show you a picture of this. So right here, you can clearly see the seismic waves there after an earthquake, okay? So it's from the epicenter of an earthquake. Epicenter is where the earthquake started, okay? That is where the earthquake started. So for instance, when we say, like in Japan, we say, well, the epicenter is in Tokyo, that's where it started. It started there within Tokyo. Earthquakes simply mean movement of the Earth's crust. Okay, that's all it means. It means movement of the Earth's crust. Tectonic plates, that right there is the boundary between different areas on the Earth's crust. So they're boundaries between different areas on the Earth's crust. So right here, these are plate boundaries. There are different areas here on the Earth's crust. This is where you have earthquakes and volcanoes occur. Clearly, you can see in the Pacific, most active That's why you have what's called the Pacific Ring of Fire, because again, this is where the most earthquakes and most volcanoes occur on the earth, and, it's being on fire. So again, that's how you get the Pacific Ring of Fire. And again, this shows you again where the earthquake originated from. You see right there, it shows where the epicenter is, and then all these waves right here, okay, they're the seismic waves. Now, tsunamis always occur when there's an earthquake underwater, okay? That's where they occur, and that's how they're formed, because there's so much energy created from an earthquake. And remember the old saying, energy can't be created nor destroyed, it has to go somewhere, so that is why. Tsunamis are very devastating because, again, there's nowhere for the water to go, and if you have a big enough earthquake, it can create waves that are, above buildings. So that's why they are just so devastating. So it really depends on how strong it is. Now, it can occur anywhere. Now, granted, they're more common in the Pacific than the Atlantic, okay? But they really can occur anywhere. You get a big enough earthquake, boom, you can have a big tsunami occur almost anywhere. Now, I'm going to go into some natural resources with nuclear fission power and also Three Gorges Dam. Nuclear fission means when you split atoms apart to create energy. Okay, so you split atoms apart to create energy. Nuclear fusion is when you combine atoms together to create energy. In nuclear power plants, nuclear fission is used over nuclear fusion. Why is that? Because it's harder to put something together than break it apart, okay? That's why it's harder to achieve nuclear fusion versus fission. Because, think about anything. Let's say you have a table. It's easier to wreck the table than it is to put the table back together or build a table. It's always easier to break something apart than put it together. So that's why fission is used within nuclear power plants. Now, if you look at this map right here, clearly there should be a couple countries that stick out that use nuclear power the most. For the world, if you look here closely, it is France and Slovakia. France and Slovakia had the largest portion of their electricity harnessed by nuclear power. Okay? In East Asia, you can clearly see that as Japan and South Korea. China is growing, okay? There will be no surprise that if China does grow because, China has a large population. China is an industrial power. China is using more technology. So don't be surprised if China becomes one of the larger usages of nuclear power as well. What's interesting here in the United States, there is clearly a geographic difference. If you look here just east of the Mississippi River, all nuclear power plants are in the eastern U.S. Here in the West, the only states that have it are Arizona, California, and Washington State. None here in the Great Plains, okay, with the exception of Nebraska. None here in the Great Plains, okay, zero, okay. Mainly, you look here, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, New Mexico, go straight down, there's nothing, okay, absolutely no nuclear power plants. So why do we not have them here in the West? Well, for one, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lower population density. Nuclear power requires a very high population density. Here in the West, we have some of the least densest populations in the United States. So that's one, okay? We have a very low density population. Another thing too, ladies and gentlemen, is that we rely more on hydropower and, coal power, natural gas, of course, in order to do it, okay? That is what we do, okay? That is why we use those there, okay? So, and yes, I finally corrected myself saying gas properly. And then for the eastern United States, okay, why they have so many, well, you have to remember, it has a very high population density. Nuclear power is good in dense areas because nuclear power puts out so much per, so many people. That is why you have to use nuclear power in the eastern U.S., particularly in states like Connecticut and Rhode Island, because they're so densely populated. You need to have the nuclear power so that way you can supply people with the powers that provide so much, per density. Okay, that's the big one. Okay, and you have to remember too, it's not just based on that, but also too, nuclear power was found, mainly in the eastern United States. So that's why they grew out here when compared to the West. Because remember, this grew in the, 60s and 70s. Now, another power source is hydroelectric power, which is used by running water. Okay. And in the United States, Canada, China, and Brazil were the largest producers of hydroelectric power. The largest one is the Three Gorges Dam in China, okay? And not only was built to prevent flooding, it was built to provide power for the millions of people that reside, okay, within this geographic location, okay? Powering a lot of these cities, particularly Chongqing, okay, and even up the river, to Wuhan, okay? Of course, we know what the importance of Wuhan now. So again, that is the importance of the hydroelectric dam. Now, one thing I will say, it does not emit anything at all. There is no emission of in the air. But the question is it really good for the environment? I want you to watch this video, okay? I want you to watch this video because you're going to answer these two questions, okay? What are 3 benefits of the Three Gorges Dam? What are 3 problems of the Three Gorges Dam, okay? This video really gives both sides. You're going to like it, okay? It's an older video. It was right after it was constructed. However, it's really non-biased, and it really gives both sides to it, okay? I mean, there is controversy, okay? There's even controversy about, how it impact people. But then the other side is it actually going to benefit in the long run having this dam, okay? So there are 2 sides to this coin. So go ahead and pause the video here to answer the question, and then we'll go into the population geography in question 2. Okay, welcome back everyone. Okay, so we're now going to go into the population geography here, okay? I want you to look at question number 2, okay? You're going to give 2 factors for each because you're going to look at why does Eastern China have high population density? Why is Western China have low population density, okay? If you look here clearly, I mean, Eastern China is very densely populated, from Shanghai all the way to Beijing and even around Hong Kong, okay? Very high population density. Then you look at Western China, it's very sparsely populated. In fact, it makes the Western United States seem more densely populated. That's how rural it is out there. So what you're going to do for question number 2, which is, of course, right here. For part 1, you're going to answer, why does Eastern China have a high population density? And then for part 2, why does Western China have a low population density? Look at the geographic differences, okay? So look at, what is present in Eastern China versus what's present in Western China, okay? Look at the geographic differences here, okay? That's part of it. Also look at the economic differences between Eastern China and Western China. Even though it's grown out here, it's still relatively the same, okay? So you have to think of it from that perspective. And think about, where people are migrating to. That's another perspective. So all I need is 2 factors, but you have all these sources here at your disposal to help you answer it, okay? So go ahead and pause the video here, and then we will continue with the population. Okay, welcome back everyone. So I do want to go into the ethnic groups here of East Asia, okay? There are some countries that are nation states, but then there's a country that is not, okay? Majority of Chinese are ethnically Han, okay? They are ethnically Han, okay? So you look at China right here. When you think of people like in the movies and that who say they're Chinese, that refers to the Han, okay? That's the dominant ethnic group, okay? In Western China, it's predominantly Tibetan, okay? You can see where Tibet is, they are a different ethnic group. So the Dalai Lama is not Han. The Dalai Lama is actually Tibetan. Okay, so make sure that you do remember that. Now, is China a nation state? Well, let's take a look at the map here. Look at all the different ethnic groups here. Okay? China is not a nation state. As much as President Xi Jinping of China likes to think that it is a nation state, it's not. Look at all the different ethnic groups you have here. You not only have the Han, you also have all the ethnic groups down here in southern China. You have Tibetans, and you have Turkic people here, because again, influence from Central Asia, even some Mongolians. So China is not a nation state, okay? It is a binational state, as we talked about in North Africa and the Middle East, but in no way is this a nation state, okay? It is not a nation state at all, okay? Now, there are countries that are nation states. Japan, classic example of a nation state because 90% of the people are ethnically Japanese. South Korea is also a nation state. So is North Korea, okay? So these are definitely nation states. You could also make the case Mongolia is a nation state as well, too. Okay, although I'm focusing more on these countries, these are nation states. Taiwan is not a nation state because a lot of the, even though it says Han there, you do have a lot of native Taiwanese who are not Han. A lot of the Han escaped there during the Chinese Civil War, okay? So that's why, you know, I know some people do, I don't, because then they're overlooking the native Taiwanese, okay? So that's why I would say it is not a nation state. Now, China adopted the one-child policy. You've probably heard this before. Started in 1978, but it became the law in 1978, and then was implemented in 1980. Okay, so it was the policy of China until 2016, where a couple was only allowed one child. If they had more than one child, they violated the order. Okay. Recently, though, they changed it to a two-child policy, and the reason they did is because a lot of authorities in China were saying, you know, there could be some long-term consequences, okay? It's still a little bit early to see if it's made any significant impact, okay? I mean, it's only been there for 4 years, so it's really hard to say, you know, whether it has been present or has not been present. So what is stated is couples were only allowed to have, you know, one child unless they were in rural areas and they were an ethnic minority. This video here will show you, okay? There were consequences. You could be fined. Your child could lose educational opportunities, forced abortions. We're talking in like the third trimester. And also, too, heavy fines for you. You could have a lot of deducted wages. So it was pretty strictly enforced, okay? And again, this video here, just be sure you watch it, will actually explain, you know, what happened there with the one-child policy, well, why rural areas were exempt along with people who are different ethnic groups. Now, this is going to be question 3, okay? I'll go ahead and I'll scroll down, okay? You have to look at it from both perspectives, though, okay? I'm not just going to say, well, you know, they're now saying it's a, you know, problem. We do have to look at why some scholars would say, hey, this was actually quite necessary, okay? You have to give 2 factors for each, okay? So I'm going to show you where to access the videos. But why would some scholars say the one-child policy was necessary? Just give 2 factors, okay? Think in terms of access to resources, access to jobs, pollution rates. You can also look at congestion rates, etc. And there are some scholars saying, well, no, it was not necessary. I mean, that's why I changed it to a 2-child policy. You know, what are the long-term impacts? And again, think of economics. Can you fill the workforce? What if you have an older population, etc.? So you have to look at those aspects. So what I'm going to do now is, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm going to show you where to access the videos, okay? It's actually in order, so that way you guys can get it, okay? So again, we'll click on a YouTube video. So again, okay, the ones that are it, okay, and you'll see it here. So you're gonna watch this one, okay? Start by watching this one, and this one. Watch these 3 videos right here. This is the one that does exemptions, and then watch these 3, okay? So those will be the ones that you're going to want to view, okay? So go ahead And the video will stop here. Answer question 3. If you notice, already 3 questions for your assignment you can answer, okay? Again, let me know if you have any questions.